My name is Janet Conklin. I'm here on behalf of Khmer TV, and I'm reporting from the city of Paramount for the county of LA event with the fire department. The reason why they're meeting, equipment គាត់នឹងចាស់ហើយឥឡូវធ្វើការឲ្យទាំងអស់គ្នាដឹងថាហេតុអ្វីបានគេជួបហើយប្រជុំម្យ៉ាងទៀតបើសិនថាខ្មែរយើងត្រូវការ call fire department យើងអាច call បានឬ text ចូលបានដែរហើយមើលទៅ event ហ្នឹងល្អមែនទែនបានថាពួកខ្ញុំមកប្រជុំជាមួយ LA County Supervisor ហើយ Chief of Fire Department as well.
We have an absolutely extraordinary lineup of speakers who represent the very courageous front lines of LA County Fire, along with their top leadership, key medical service providers, a 911 dispatcher. It just couldn't be a greater panel. Thank you so much for agreeing to be here and let us, as ethnic media journalists and community media journalists, tell the story of LA County Fire from the inside out. This is not a one-off press briefing. Those are great. This is really a briefing to build our knowledge base about your work and what it is when we call 911. Who are we calling? We never ask. We never think about it. We assume these folks will come to the rescue. But we don't ask ourselves, what is it that it takes to come to the rescue? What do LA County firefighters have to do with medical emergencies? What is it that we need to know to inform our audiences about the remarkable job LA County Fire is doing, and what do they need to ensure they can continue keeping our neighborhoods safe? So that's what today's briefing is about, and to save time, because we have a lot of speakers, I've asked even our keynote speaker to keep their remarks to about 5 minutes if possible. And get that memo. Well, we accept all elected officials, okay? So let's start right now with LA County Supervisor Janice Hahn. Her bio is in your press packets, and we are proud to have her open today's briefing on the 50th anniversary of a remarkable service, the 911 paramedic service that her father launched. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm going to put that back. I have a way of breaking things, so it may not work. Don't break my heart.
Can you lower this one? Thank you.
Not my first rodeo. I know. I like you to see me. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Sandy. Thank you all for being here. We think it's so important that the public learns about the Los Angeles County Fire Department and the needs of our department. But this isn't a topic that can be boiled down to your standard press conference or press release. So I really appreciate all of you from the media taking time this morning to be here for this more in-depth discussion. First and foremost, I think it's important to understand that our fire department is not just a firefighting force. It also runs our paramedic program, which my father, the original Supervisor Hahn, started in the late 60s. And it was the first paramedic program in the nation. It's hard to imagine a time before we had paramedics, before we could expect a highly trained and capable paramedic to come to our aid when we were hurt or sick. We take these life-saving services for granted these days. But it was not that long ago that the idea of paramedics was considered unconventional, and it was even ridiculed. In the late 1960s, my father, Supervisor Hahn, was told by his heart doctor that he could save lives if we could treat heart attack patients in the field long before they even got to a hospital. There was the golden hour, and if you could reach someone having a heart attack and treat them in that golden hour, you had a better chance of saving their life than if you waited to transport them to the nearest hospital. My dad was convinced that this was a revolutionary idea and one that Los Angeles County could and should lead the way in. This all seems like common sense now, doesn't it? But he faced serious opposition. Doctors were against it, nurses were against it, and his own fire chief at the time was against it, complaining that my men are firemen, not medicine men. It took a state law to be changed to allow firefighters to administer drugs. And it was the Wadsworth-Townsend Act that was ultimately passed by our state legislature in Sacramento, but it faced a veto threat from then Governor Ronald Reagan. So my dad hopped on a plane, flew to Sacramento, and met with Governor Reagan to give him one last pitch on why this was so important for California. He told the governor that by signing this bill, he would be saving lives for generations to come and dramatically increase the chances of survival for heart attack patients. Governor Reagan asked the question to my dad, will these paramedics be able to cross jurisdictional lines? And my father said, yes. The concept is a base hospital, and who's ever closest to that particular hospital, they will be transporting the patient after they've treated them in the field. And the governor said, I'm going to sign the bill. And my dad asked what changed his mind, and he said his own father died of a heart attack because his mother called for an ambulance, and when it got to the city line where the Reagans lived, it turned around and went back without radioing to anyone else to attend. So he thought it was a good idea. He signed the bill, and it allowed Los Angeles County to be the nation's first paramedic program. And 50 years after the creation of the paramedic program, we can see how much it's transformed our fire department. And it's funny to think about what that fire chief told my dad, because today, my fire chief, Chief Osby, would tell me that 84% of the calls our county fire department responds to are medical calls. And our paramedics are treating not just heart attacks, they're treating car accident victims, they're diagnosing strokes in the field. This is an incredibly important work, but it's getting more and more difficult every day. The number of medical calls our department receives is skyrocketing. They've gone up 50% since 2008. They've gone up 50% since 2008. But in that same time, we've only been able to increase the number of paramedic squads by 5%, and have seen no increase in the amount of resources our fire department receives from the fire district. And on top of this, our department is also facing bigger and more frequent fires. While we used to be able to count on a fire season, now it's a year-round fire threat that is our new normal. Increasing temperatures, drought conditions, high winds, low humidity, the perfect recipe for large-scale fires is now a way of life here in Southern California. Our fire department, their budget is stretched too thin. The department is understaffed. The equipment our firefighters and paramedics depend on is outdated. These are serious problems, and if we want to continue to offer the excellent emergency medical services and fire protection that we provide today to our residents, we have to address this resource problem. And to do that, we need our residents to understand the roots of this problem. Today, you're going to hear from our fire chief, Daryl Osby, about the challenges facing this department, as well as from a few incredible firefighters and paramedics who are going to tell you stories from the front lines. The challenges we face are real. And at the same time, I have never had more faith in this department and its commitment to protecting the lives of the Los Angeles County residents. Thank you to all the men and women who serve in what I consider the best fire department in the country. Back to you, Sandy.
That was a tremendous lesson in history and lesson in the future of how we need to keep our neighborhoods safe. So now I'm honored to introduce Chief Daryl Osby.
Well, good morning. Once again, my name is Daryl Osby, and I'm the fire chief of the Los Angeles County Fire Department. I'm glad to be here at Fire Station 31 in the city of Paramount to have this conversation. I would like to thank our media and community members that are here to listen to us, and also thank our honorable supervisor for her words. It's amazing to think that when she briefly spoke about her dad and our paramedic program, and there's tons of things that he did to put the county and this fire department on the map, but some 50 years later now, I have as our boss one of our governing supervisors to help us with the next phase of ensuring that this is a premier organization. So when I talk about a premier organization and one of the best fire departments in the country, if not the world, I must first thank the men and women that work for this department. We're here at Fire Station 31. Some of the firefighters that are here that serve this community are in the back. They put their lives on the line each and every day to protect this community. They're some of the busiest firefighters and firefighter paramedics in this county, if not the country, in relation to their commitment to public safety. I just want to just briefly echo some of the words that were mentioned by Supervisor Hahn. I mean, she took most of my speaking points, so I will definitely be within my 5 minutes. But as she mentioned how busy this organization has got. People at work, right? Yeah, so we respond in over 1,000 911 calls a day. So that never stops regardless of what we're doing. But just a synopsis of just my 10 years as fire chief. I got appointed to the fire chief of the Los Angeles County Fire Department in 2011. And then some 8 years ago, we responded on approximately 230,000 emergency responses. Last year, we closed our books at approximately 400,000 emergency responses. At the end of 2020, our projections are that we'll be at 500,000 emergency responses and climbing. When I took over the organization, we were then the 7th busiest department in the country. We're now the 4th busiest department in the country, behind New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles. And our projections are soon will be second only to New York. And that just shows the number of responses that our firefighters, our paramedics are responding to in this region. In addition to that, when you think about the staffing on the Los Angeles County Fire Department, we do more with less. Our firefighters are cross-trained to do medical calls, structural firefighting, urban search and rescue, hazmat, you name it, they do it. The national standard for staffing fire trucks is 4. But 2/3 of our fire apparatus here in this county are staffed with 3. But they still do their jobs. As Supervisor Hahn mentioned, with the significant call volume of our paramedics, we've only decreased our staffing by 3%. 5% is the race of paramedic units, although our call volume has gone up 50%. I cannot begin to tell you the stress and the impact that has on our firefighters and our paramedics as it relates to that workload. In addition to that, in my tenure, we've been financially challenged. At the same time, our call volume's gone up. The last 3 years, we've been unable to purchase equipment for our firefighters and our paramedics, vital equipment that they need for jaws of life for rescuing people, or thermal imagers that they need to rescue people in fires, or vehicles. We have a 20-year replacement plan for our fire trucks, and we have a significant number of fire trucks that need replacement, but we don't have the revenue and the funding to replace them. We're even going to listen to a dispatcher. Our dispatch system is over 30 years old. We were very fortunate in this county to get hundreds of thousands or hundreds of millions of dollars of grant funding in relation to broadband funding and funding to build an interoperable communication system, but we don't have the funding to buy the needed radios and communication systems for your firefighters, your paramedics, and your lifeguards. And it goes on and on and on in relation to structures and helicopters and lifeguard boats. The last time the department went to the public as it relates to additional funding has been over 20 years. I will conclude my comments with this, to paint a picture. Supervisor Hahn mentioned year-round wildland firefighting. Last year in our county, we had the most significant wildland fire in modern times, the Woolsey incident, November 8th. To paint a picture, typically fire departments rely on mutual aid. So when we have incidents that exceed our capacity, then we have fire departments helping fire departments respond to that incident. Because of the challenges in the state of California, firefighters from Northern California were unavailable. In November, we would typically have several feet of snow and several inches of rain, so they could reallocate resources down here to help us, but that didn't happen. Unfortunately, they had a fire entitled the Camp Fire, which burned into the city of Paradise. And unfortunately, over 80 people died. And so when we asked for resources, they weren't available. So we did the best we could with what we had. We got some help locally, but the most significant help didn't come 3, 4, and 5 days later from other states. We had your Los Angeles County firefighters sum up to 48 hours straight with no rest, fighting fires and evacuating people. They lost, unfortunately, 3 lives. And might I add, those are 3 people that did not follow our instructions to evacuate. Unfortunately, we lost over 1,400 homes, but they saved over 57,000 homes. They evacuated over 250,000 homes. It got to the point to where we had firefighters coming to work, and unfortunately we ran out of equipment because we couldn't provide the equipment for them to do their jobs. That's just an example of some of the challenges that this firefighter and this fire department faces, but that also speaks to the commitment of your firefighters. If you would like to know more, we're going to have more people that are. And might I add, too, while they're going on a response, when we had that fire, we still get the 1,000+ emergency medical calls that we go to every day, so that still happened. So we had to keep resources in the behind to do that. But we do have a website, www. We do have a website, www.wearelacountyfire.org, if you would like to know more about our department and the fellow of survey. So I'll turn this back over to Sandy and allow more members from my organization to talk about this organization and our challenges. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we're going to go to Assistant Chief Eleni Pappas. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for inviting me here today. And thank you especially to Chief Osby and to Supervisor Hahn. I'm the first female assistant fire chief for the county fire. And I say that because Chief Osby's made a commitment to promote women and to make a place for everyone in his command staff and to include everyone at the table to be a representative of the vast and diverse community that is LA County. But, you know, where did I come from? I'm actually the daughter of immigrants. My mom, Nike, and my father, Haralambros, back in the late 60s, left Greece after it was torn apart by the war and by communism, and they were in the belly of a freighter ship, and they made their way across the Atlantic during a hurricane. And they didn't know if they were going to survive the trip. And they landed in New Jersey, and here I am today. So, as the daughter of immigrants, one thing that children of immigrants, and I'm looking at this crowd and I see a lot of children of immigrants here, and one thing that I think we collectively understand is hard work and perseverance. So it's good that Chief Osby hired me because he's going to get his money's worth because we work hard and we appreciate the opportunities that are here in this community. How does the staffing shortage, how does the increase in 911 calls affect what I do every day? I'm the operational commander of Division 6. And we have the most densely populated and urbanized communities within the county, right here in this area. And we have a lot of immigrant, hardworking families that are underserved, don't necessarily have opportunities for health care. And what we see is we are the safety net for those communities. They call 911 because they're not feeling well, and the person might be 60 years old, and we come and we say, okay, I think you have a heart condition. We get you to a hospital, and then they're finally able to get definitive care and get treatment. But that would have never been caught unless we were that safety net, and they called the paramedic services, and they called 911. Several years ago, I was working in Bell Gardens as a paramedic, and we had a young girl, Spanish speaking. She had chest pain, and I said, well, she's 12, and it doesn't make sense. And her mother said, you know, she's just upset. We just leave her alone. She's upset. I go, I don't think she's really upset because the things that she's saying to me is not, she would never know how to make that up. She would never know how to say the symptoms that she was having. And we put her on one of our heart monitors, which cost $27,000. And guess what we found? We found a very rare and bizarre heart rhythm. And we wound up taking her to Children's Hospital, and she had a valve transplant that would have never been caught unless we had the training that was provided, unless we had that $27,000 heart monitor, and unless we had this 911 system in place that acted as the safety net. If we don't, we are the safety net, and if we don't support the safety net, it's folks that are going to fall through. And I hope that's the message I can get out to everybody today. One other thing I'd like to say about our staffing, and I'm just going to reference my captain back there, Eric Suarez, a wonderful fireground captain, works out of Inglewood. They went on a cardiac arrest of a very young child, and Fire Station 170 took that young baby, CPR, all the paramedic medications, took that child to Centinela, stayed there, stayed with the staff at Centinela to provide advanced life support, and was ready to stay with the child to transfer the child to another facility that would have been like Children's Hospital, more advanced care. And the child passed away. And so I spoke with Eric, and he said, we need time. We're all hurting here. This is real personal. I said, you got it. You know what I wanted to do? I wanted to send them home so that they could go home with their families and that they could heal a little bit, but I couldn't do that because we didn't have replacements for them. But thankfully, because of Chief Osby's leadership, he's made it a priority to have mental health and behavioral health specialists, and he has put that aside for us, which I have to personally thank him, because when this fire station was at a crisis because they're all fathers and they all had little kids, and they said, we got to have some downtime. I go, okay. We took them out of service for a couple hours. We sent another fire engine to help them cover, and we got on a weekend, we got a psychologist and behavioral specialist to help them deal with that loss that was pretty traumatic to all of them. But that's tough for me. And then another example, we had a jumper, a person that had some very severe psychological issues and wound up jumping onto the 710 freeway from an overpass. And I'm not trying to be gruesome here, but it's a very disturbing sight when that happens. And he did jump. He did decide to jump. And I had to pull all of my people out again. I had to pull them out of service so that they could process it, so that they could deal with it, so that whatever they saw, the sounds, all of that, that they could somehow talk this out so that they didn't carry that with them. And that's a very difficult thing to see. I don't wish that for anyone here to ever see somebody jump and take their life. Again, we were able to pull them out of service. I wanted to send them home. I couldn't. But we were able to, at least for a few hours, get them out of service. Again, because Chief Osby supports this, we were able to get a special team out there to help them talk this out and deal with the psychological aftermath of all of that. So how do we deal with all this as chiefs and commanders, and how do we balance all this? It's very difficult, but I'm going to highlight just the dedication of our men and women under these really difficult circumstances. One last story. We have a truck company in Inglewood, again, Captain Suarez's truck company, and the truck company, when the truck itself, that massive piece of equipment that you see right here, the ladder couldn't function. So the men had to change out of the truck. We couldn't find another truck to change into. But they wanted to stay in service. They didn't want to go out of service. They wanted to remain available to the community. So we took a smaller fire engine, and they loaded all of that equipment on that truck into a small little fire engine, and they kept running. And I'm telling you that speaks volumes to just as Chief Osby said and Supervisor Hahn said, to the dedication that, to our mission here to be the safety net for these communities. So thank you for being here. Thank you for the support. And there's thousands of stories, you may not ever know that, of the things that these men and women do. And I just thank you for supporting all of us here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We will now hear from 3 firefighter specialists who also worked as paramedics. And if you would, just because we need to save time, you might want to stay in your seats and speak on the microphone or if you're more comfortable standing, whichever. Do you want to go first? This is firefighter specialist Esteban Lopez. Could you speak in Spanish? And if you want to stand, that's fine too.
Buenos días. Yo me llamo Esteban López. Ha sido un bombero por 17 años. Yo también soy hijo de inmigrantes. Mis papás son de México. Yo soy nacido aquí en los Estados Unidos. Mi cuento de querer ser bombero viene desde muy chico. Cuando estaba muy joven tuve yo una emergencia. Me había caído y mis papás no sabían cómo ayudarme. Realizaron que pudieran llamar al 911 y vinieron los bomberos con paramédicos para mi auxilio. Me trasladaron a un hospital y todo salió bien, gracias a Dios, aquí estoy. Pero en ese momento mis papás y yo también pudimos ver de que la necesidad de la comunidad de tener un recurso como el de nosotros es muy importante. Me interesó bastante para querer estudiar y tomar cursos para ser bombero. Ahorita llevo ya más de 17 años de bombero. Ahorita yo soy el chofer del camión de bomberos y es un orgullo ser parte de este departamento. Tuve tiempo de ser paramédico también y he visto cambios en los años que ya llevo de paramédico en los recursos que se ocupan. Las estaciones donde trabajamos están un poco antiguadas, tienen unos edificios que fueron construidos en el año 1950 y todavía estamos trabajando en estos edificios, haciendo lo que podamos para mantenerlos en buena condición, pero es algo que sí nos presenta con dificultades. Como hemos hablado un poco, se los digo en español, las llamadas han subido bastante, más de 50% han subido en menos de 10 años, la necesidad de primeros auxilios en las comunidades. Nosotros tenemos el programa de paramédicos que es muy importante, que es donde no nomás es primeros auxilios, pero dan servicios avanzados para poder ayudar a la gente que tiene problemas médicos. Hay veces que nos llaman porque les duele la cabeza, pero lo que no saben es de que están teniendo un derrame cerebral o otro síntoma que nos pueda dar problemas más graves. Muy breve les contaré un cuento de cuando yo era paramédico. Yo empecé de bombero, estudié para ser paramédico y ahorita ya soy el chofer del camión de bomberos. Pero de paramédico un día vino un cartero, estaba haciendo su ruta en la ciudad de El Monte donde trabajaba yo antes. Y llegó y dijo, me siento un poco mareado. No sé si es el calor, pero me gustaría que me revisen. Lo revisamos, lo pusimos en lo que tenemos nosotros para poder revisar el corazón y vimos que el ritmo no estaba como debería de ser normal. Es algo que no hubiéramos podido ver si no hubiéramos podido usar este equipo que tenemos nosotros, muy avanzado para revisar el corazón. El señor estaba teniendo un ataque cardíaco. Era muy serio y él no lo sabía. Lo tuvimos que llevar de emergencia a un hospital donde el tiempo es lo que decide cuánto daño se ha hecho al corazón. El señor sobrevivió, pudo regresar con su familia a darnos las gracias, algo muy bonito que para nosotros, por eso estamos aquí. El ser bombero es una profesión, para mí yo me siento que es algo muy especial que nos han dado. Y no es para todos, pero para los que somos, lo entendemos. Gracias por su tiempo. Nosotros estamos aquí para darles la información de lo que hacemos en día a diario y que sí está llegando a un tiempo que la tecnología que tenemos ahorita ocupa que pudiéramos mejorarla. Y eso va a ocupar quizás el apoyo de ustedes algún día de una manera u otra. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Thank you. Just to let our media know that there will be time for one-on-one interviews with Spanish-speaking firefighters, with a Farsi-speaking firefighter, and with a Tagalog-speaking firefighter after. But thank you so much. I wish I could have understood everything you said. Our next firefighter specialist is Jonathan Carmelo. Jonathan.
Morning, everybody. My name is Jonathan Carnero, and I work over at Linwood Fire Station, Fire Station 147, and I grew up wanting to become a firefighter ever since I was a little boy, just seeing a big red roll down the street with lights and sirens, and that's what I wanted to be. Unfortunately, my parents, they grew up in the Philippines, and they weren't too familiar with the fire service. And pretty much all they knew were, once your child's born, you're either going to be a nurse or an accountant. So I think I went against the grain and had a report to write in 8th grade, and I did it on the fire service. Still, my parents weren't convinced that that's what I was here to do, and they still encouraged me to go do what Filipinos do, and that was either medical service in the nursing or be an accountant. I guess we hit a compromise when I went into school for computer technology. Realized that's not what I wanted to do. I was on the 15th floor in downtown LA, looking down at the fire engine, still going round and round, and that's what I knew that's what I wanted to do. I did some research, saved some money, quit my job, and went back to school for the fire service. Finished that and started volunteering with La Habra Heights Fire Department, West Covina Fire Department, and I was too old to be an explorer, but I volunteered 48 hours of my week for free to get my foot in the door, and made minimum wage on an ambulance just to get the experience, and tested anywhere I could. It took me 5 years, 50 tests later, and finally I got 3 phone calls, one from Pasadena Fire, one from LA County, and one from North Las Vegas. And it was a clear choice. LA County was going to be it for 3 reasons. One was it's close to home, didn't have to leave my family. It's a large department with the tradition and the opportunity. And it was the best department on the West Coast. I've been with the department for about 13 years, 3 years as a firefighter, another 3 years as a firefighter paramedic, and currently 6 years as an engineer on Quint 147. Every aspect has had a different job and different opportunities, and I really wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
Thank you. What would you, we have a number of Filipino media who would love to talk to you after the panel. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Our next speaker is firefighter specialist Jason Gorbani. Jason, I'm sorry, fire captain. Jason. We won't make you compete with.
Yeah, and if I cannot hold the mic, I can't speak without my hands moving, and so if I'm holding the mic, it's not going to go well. Good morning. My name is Jason Gorbani. I'm a fire captain with County of Los Angeles Fire Department. Chief Pop has asked me to be down here today for a couple of reasons, and I will be brief. The first one was to talk to you about the things that our supervisor and our fire chief spoke of this morning, how we're being stretched thin and what it means. I have the great honor and privilege of working not only for the County of Los Angeles Fire Department, best in the world. That's not a boastful statement, it's a proud statement. But I also have the opportunity and privilege to work at the busiest firehouse in the best department. And so I can kind of put a perspective on what all the numbers mean. And in fact, we had Dr. Kazan, we had the pleasure of having him ride with us yesterday. And I can tell you, sorry, the hands are gonna go crazy here in a second, so please bear with me. I can tell you what the alarming rate of escalation of call volume, like what that is starting to look like. The firehouse I work in looks very much like this. 3 pieces of apparatus, 10 personnel. My firehouse on average does 34.7 runs a day. The last 3 weeks when the heat came in, by the way, Firehouse 33 is the city of Lancaster. So when I talk about the weather up there, I think you get an idea. Hot and cold. I'm sorry, hot and windy or cold and windy. Those are our 2 weather patterns. And 34.7 is an average. When the heat comes in, we get over 40 runs a day, and we have to manage those 40 runs a day with 3 pieces of apparatus, 10 personnel. We do it with pride. We are proud protectors. County of Los Angeles, what we base our department on. We also believe in the concept our fire chief spoke of, we do more with less. But at some point, we're not going to be able to manage, and I think being here today, the timing is appropriate. It works out well as it tends to do in this job. Dr. Kazan was with us. Engine 33 had to go on a pediatric full arrest. Hard run for all of us. Most of us have kids. Turned out to be a true pediatric full arrest. We had no sooner cleared the pediatric full arrest and we had a pediatric seizure that had to be flown out. We had no sooner cleared that than we had an ongoing hazmat run, the next district over, which we would have been part of the response matrix, meaning we would have had to go and have responsibility. And as that run came out, we had a working structure fire and a convalescent home 1-story in our district. We managed all those runs. County Los Angeles Fire Department, that's what we do. But at some point, those 40 runs a day are going to come to all of our firehouses. And under current staffing and current logistical apparatus and the things that we have to run, being at the levels that are not rising with those call volumes, we're not getting the budget to get more stuff and more people, we're not going to be able to sustain. We're making it work now because of the personnel we have and the leadership and what their expectations of us are. But they asked me to come down today to give you an idea what that call volume looks like. It is 34.7 runs a day, regardless for Firehouse 33, sometimes a little more, sometimes not less. And we manage it and we get it done, but there is going to be a point. The other thing is I've had the great pleasure of being with this department 28 years, 20 of them sworn. And I can tell you the 20 years that I've been sworn, in the last 10 years especially, it's not only call volume total for the department, but the things we are called for, that we are expected to go out and we are the fixers, the numbers of those things increase as well. And we go do them, we do them all well. The second point I was brought down is because I am of Middle Eastern descent. I am the first generation born in America. My family's from Tehran, Iran. My dad came over in the early 70s, met my mom. I'm so glad they met. And then he left and went back to the homeland. And then in 78, the revolution occurred. My dad had to get out and he came back. To be a public servant with a family that came over from the homeland, they had no idea what that meant. What are you doing wanting to be a fireman? So having the memory in my mind of explaining to them big red fire trucks and what they mean and the people who jump off are the coolest thing ever. And then telling them what those things mean, what it is we actually do. Persian people by culture are excessively generous. So when I say I get to exude and give generosity all day, I get to live a department that will pay me for my self-sacrifice, which is part of my culture, my family understood it. And now as a fire captain speaking to young explorers of Persian or Armenian descent, which we have a couple little pockets of that up in Lancaster, calling their parents and explaining to them why it is a noble cause to be a County Los Angeles firefighter, and because you're required to self-sacrifice, you're required to give excessively, and helping them understand that public service is a great endeavor. It's been a great, great ride for me personally, and as we all like to say, probably way too much, living the dream. And that's basically why I'm here today. I want to thank you for having me down here today, and again, I'll be available after. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry about the hand.
And now we're going to hear from Kevin Hernandez, who is going to speak in English because he is also Spanish fluent, but he is our firefighter dispatcher. And I felt all of us needed to understand just the challenge of being on the other end of the line when we call in great distress 911. So thank you, Mr. Hernandez.
Good morning. My name is Kevin Hernandez. I'm a fire dispatcher too for the Los Angeles County Fire Department. I've been working here for about 2.5 years now, and I'm one of the voices at the other end when somebody calls 911. They're calling at one of the most difficult times in their life, and my job is to be calm and provide emergency medical instructions when their loved ones are having a true emergency. It's a job that I truly enjoy because you directly get to help everyone you come into contact with, whether it's sending help for a cardiac emergency, a child having a seizure, or just public assist. Somebody fell, needs help getting back up. And I've learned so much from being in this position that it kind of puts in perspective how important it is to have 911 operators. You know, without 911 operators, the call does not get sent. Without 911 operators, you can't start CPR on somebody that's not awake, somebody that's not breathing. Something I never thought I would do was help deliver a baby over the phone. The call came in while the father was driving his wife to the emergency room, and decided to call 911 because of the tractions were getting closer and closer. I was able to get them to pull over using our map systems. I was able to figure out where they were at in relation to what street to a corner. And while on the phone, the baby decided it was time. So the baby was delivered. And to hear that cry at the other end of the phone is something that's truly amazing. And it's an experience that I'll never forget. It's truly an amazing job, and you're obviously dealing with a lot of stress every day. We're taking 800, 1,400 calls a day. The Woolsey fire, close to 4,000. So it's definitely stressful as well, but through teamwork within the field units and with each other, we're able to get the job done and provide the best possible service to the County of Los Angeles.
Thank you. Just very briefly, what would as one of our reporters last week, what would your Christmas list be to ensure you have the resources you need, the communications you need going into the future, and the staffing you need?
Obviously, more staffing and a better mapping system. I mean, we have, on the weekends, a lot of people like to go hiking, and some get injured, and it's very difficult to pinpoint exactly where somebody is, and it takes other resources, such as helicopters, to try to figure out where the patient is and get them the assistance that they need. As far as staffing goes, for example, the Woolsey fire, we had thousands of calls come in, and while taking calls for the fires, we also have to take calls for other medical emergencies, other structure fires within the County of Los Angeles. So I think that would definitely be helpful.
Thank you. I have to say, having two sons of my own, I keep kicking myself. Why didn't I encourage them to become firefighter paramedics? It's such a really courageous, noble profession. We're now going to hear from two doctors who will provide a sense of what it's like to work with LA County Fire firefighters, paramedics, and fire captains to ensure that medical services are aligned with the information that they receive that's so important. And we're going to start with Dr. David Tannen, who's an emergency room doctor at Harbor UCLA Medical Center. Thank you, Dr. Tannen.
Hey, my name is Dave Tannen. As she said, I'm one of the emergency physicians over at Harbor UCLA. It's just feedback. I wanted to come to give a shout out for the paramedics. I've been an emergency physician now going on about 25 years. I was in the Navy before joining Harbor UCLA, which is the big referral trauma center here in the South Bay. And we interact with paramedics daily. Sorry about that. Just want to say we interact with paramedics daily. Probably during one of my shifts, we'll get about 10 runs brought in from paramedics. And this is the range of patients from car accidents, trauma victims, gunshot victims, heart attacks, strokes. I would say the vast majority of our patients, our sick patients, are being brought in by paramedics who've already started the treatment for most of these patients out at home. Out at the scene of the accident and in the homes on the way that they're transporting us. It's an amazing thing. And, working in a hospital, in the emergency room, we see terrible things, we see awful things, but often it has nothing to compare with the paramedics for what they show us on their iPads or on their phones of what they've seen at the scene of the accident, where they are firefighters first, extracting patients, extracting victims, before rendering the care that they're then instituting before they bring them to us. In addition, Harbor UCLA is a base station. So in addition to actually having the patients come to us, we oversee through the base station where they're sending patients throughout the county. It's fascinating, right? And just what they're doing at the scene, right? The medications, the resuscitations, and bringing the patients to the appropriate response. It's just an amazing endeavor. So I really came just to give a shout out to the paramedics, to the firefighters. I also work with them with the Urban Search and Rescue, and just an amazing team of people that do extraordinary things. And when it comes to, having the latest technology, to transmit EKGs, those are the little things, right? So they transmit EKGs now, but the technology they're using is about 20 years behind. So just having that for our patients to know what's coming in, to interpret with them how to treat the patients is incredibly important. Obviously, we all have tons of stories of patients who've come in, and I've had 25 years of this, but just the response by the paramedics and the firefighters has just been so critical in the care of our patients over the years that I can't say enough. And if there's any way we can support them, whether it's for vehicles, technology, the telecommunications, we need it because it all affects us, and we'll be the people who will call 911. And the amount of calls that they handle is, honestly, it's unreal when you think about, these are firefighters. Their primary job is to fight fires and rescue people, and yet the vast majority of their calls are medical calls. So I just want to give an incredible shout out to an amazing team of people, and to give the perspective from, and there go again, from, we're the county referral, we're the county trauma center. We see the patients, the victims they bring in, and we couldn't be more appreciative.
Thank you, Dr. Tannen, for taking time. Our final speaker is Dr. Clayton Kazan, who is the LA County Fire Medical Director. And why don't you come to the front or the podium, whatever is most comfortable.
This will work for me.
Okay.
Might want to, do you want me to wait just a second for them to exit? Because it's going to get loud for a second. Well, good morning, everybody. So, my name is Clayton Kazan, and I get to wear a very interesting hat in that I am the medical director for the Los Angeles County Fire Department. A little bit about just who I am and sort of what this position does. So, as the medical director of the department, I'm actually a double-boarded emergency physician like Dr. Tannen. Actually, he and I used to work together at Harbor UCLA. And I'm also an EMS specialist, which means that I also am a specialist in working with paramedic and EMT programs. I was an emergency physician at St. Francis Medical Center for 13 years, and I'm currently also an emergency physician at Little Company of Mary in Torrance. My full-time job is with the LA County Fire Department. To talk a little bit about the theme of what we were saying before about doing more with less. So I am the department's only physician. The Fire Department of New York, by comparison, has 9 medical directors and 2 fellows. So we have me as one full-time medical director, and we share 1 fellow. So it is really, really stretched. And my job, my mission, and really, actually what I wanted to be when I was growing up is I wanted to be firefighter paramedic Johnny Gage from the television show, and I ended up going on a slightly different path, but I ended up finding my way back anyway. But it's my job to help make sure that the care that we provide for our patients is truly evidence-based and world-class. And I absolutely believe that it is. But I want you to think a little bit about the equipment that we bring. Everything that we're doing is getting more complex. The patients that we see are more complex. What's asked of us is more complex. Think about the technology that has been added on in the last 50 years. Try to think of anything, whether it's the cell phones that you have or anything, has anything gotten less expensive in that time? In the last 20 years since we last asked for an increase in funding, has any technology really gotten cheaper? And the answer really is no. I want to speak specifically about one thing that is really one of my passions and something that I think we've gotten a lot of traction on, and that is in our care of cardiac arrest patients, adult and children. We are really striving to be a world-class provider of cardiac arrest care. We're part of multiple pilot projects. We've won many grants to do that. But when we talk about this increasing call volume and the fact that the call volume's gone up 50%, you need to understand that that call volume does not spread out evenly, that it most disproportionately affects vulnerable patient populations like Captain Gorbani's station up in Lancaster, where I got to visit yesterday. For every minute that a defibrillator is delayed in getting to the patient, there's a 7 to 10% drop in that patient's survival. Which communities are the ones most impacted? The ones that are accessing 911 the most, because they're the ones whose apparatuses are the busiest. We can't take from communities that it's quieter to give to the communities that need it the most, because all the communities need and deserve to be covered. But the end result is we get stations where we have paramedic squads where one apparatus alone averages more than 25 calls a day. And with our dispatch and everything else, we're really stretching the limits of human performance, because the busier they get, the less sleep they get, the more we worry about errors and things like that. And they do such an amazing job, but we need to get in there and fill that funding gap, because if we don't, there's going to reach a breaking point where our errors are going to start to occur, because you just can't expect the world from human beings. They really do get stretched. And we talk about mental health and how they see what is someone's absolute worst day of their life. As soon as that call is done, they pack it on up, and almost immediately there's another call waiting for them to go to the next one. So I thank you very much for being here. I will gladly take questions afterwards, and I'm really proud to be the capstone for this morning.
Thank you so much. Now we have time for questions from all of you, and who would like to go first? Mr. Macias?
This question is for Supervisor Han. Since you are a supervisor, do you ever listen about their need of the firefighters in the LA County, and why it took so long for you guys to respond to their needs?
Well, thank you. Of course, I listen as the county supervisor, along with my 4 colleagues on the Board of Supervisors. Of course, we listen to the needs of all of our departments. We actually have 37 departments in the County of Los Angeles, and a majority of our budget every year does go for public safety, both for our sheriffs and certainly for our fire department. But I think we're at a point now where the needs of our fire department have been put to the back burner for a lot of years, even before I got here. And I think what you're hearing today is, from all the stories, is that we are at a almost a crisis in LA County. Things have changed. You know, the fire season year-round, the chances that when we have a big fire here in Southern California, they're also having a big fire in Northern California. That has changed. As you heard, we used to depend on mutual aid, and that's not the case anymore. So I think things have changed, which is why we're talking today about the need for more resources outside, I think, of our current county budget. We need to find another source of revenue that will support the changing needs of our fire department in 2019 and going forward. Medical calls are greater, the fire calls are greater. It's not that we haven't listened, it's that things have really changed quickly here in LA County.
Fire Chief Osby, would you like to address the issue of just going to the public to make them aware, and also learning from them what you're anxious to do to learn from the public what their priorities are in order to shape a request?
Okay, well, first of all, I just want to just thank Supervisor Han. I mean, I report to the entire board of supervisors, but she's the supervisor that oversees our budget, and she's made this topic her #1 priority. So she didn't say that, but I just wanted to echo that. This is her #1 priority for this, and then some of the other initiatives that she's doing in relation to public safety. As it relates to the fire department, we are conservative, and we kind of prided ourselves on doing more with less. And as the under my tenure as the fire chief, before I went to our governing body to really talk about the need, because I was very concerned about going to the public saying we need more funding, is we did several internal exercises as it relates to a zero-based budget exercise to just really start a budget process all over to ensure that we are using the county tax dollar as efficiently and as effectively as we could. And I think we've demonstrated that we've done that. It's finally gotten to the point to where we really have to go back out to the public. The last time we've gone to the public in relation to funding resource was in the late 90s. We're there again. The reason we're talking today is because at some given point I need to give the outcomes of these public meetings to our governing body for them to make a determination as far as next steps. But it was my responsibility as the fire chief to really just talk to our firefighters and talk to our communities about the need. Because I think that in some instances our firefighters, our firefighter paramedics, our lifeguards are so popular and they do such an amazing job that sometimes it's hard to understand, well, if they do this so well, then how are they challenged? So we're taking this opportunity to really educate our constituents, our media, our communities that we do an exceptional job. We do have exceptional people, but here's our challenges. Please go to our website and share your thoughts, and then at some given point, we're going to collect the data, we're going to potentially do polling. I'm going to give all that information over to our governing body, which is Supervisor Hahn and the other 4 supervisors, and they will make the determination as far as next steps on what's most appropriate to ensure that this department is properly equipped and staffed.
Thank you. And one other question before we go to more media questions. You had spoken last week about the human toll on the fire department. I hate to ask you to raise that, but it certainly made a powerful point.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. And one of the things there were a couple of things I wasn't prepared for when I took this position as fire chief. And, but one in particular is just the impact this profession has on firefighters and lifeguards. And year in, year out, this profession is generally in the top 3, but generally speaking, number 1 as it relates to the most stressful profession in our country. As the fire chief for the last 5 years, I've spoken at over 50 funerals. You know, unfortunately, we've lost a lot of firefighters and lifeguards to cancer. When you think about the products of combustion and the things that our firefighters are exposed to over the course of time, the breathing apparatus that we provide, the protective gear that we provide is barely enough in the sense that now some of the products of combustion they absorb right through their skin. So we've modified our decontamination process. We've tried to increase our protective equipment with the budget that we have, and try to limit the exposure our firefighters have by modifying some of our tactics and strategies. But it still hasn't stopped the number of funerals I've spoken to, number 1. And number 2, what's most perplexing that has happened in my tenure as a fire chief, typically the number 1 cause of firefighter death will be line of duty death in our country, but unfortunately now suicide. And that really just speaks to the mental and behavioral stress of this profession, and that's why when Chief Pappas was talking, we're really putting a lot of emphasis between myself and the boards, supervisors, and labor to collaboratively address mental and behavioral stress. And even in our own organization, we've had 7 suicides in the last 8 years that as it relates to this profession. So in addition to that complexity, I can't quantify it, but I can probably, in my professional experience of doing this for over 35 plus years, that the impact of us being understaffed, the impact of sometimes our firefighters not having all the equipment they need, or the paramedics not having all the equipment they need, or the stress of the profession has definitely had an impact on those decision points.
Thank you. Our next question, Joseph Nguyen.
Yes, my name is Joseph, and I'm a CEO for Vietnamese TV network, the largest Vietnamese network in America. And now I have not the question, but invitation. As you know that as an immigrant, the two group of people I respect the most, police officers and fire department, because they put their lives every day for us. So now, I would like to invite you, Mr. Daryl Osby, to come to my station. I give you 1 hour at prime time to come to talk to my people, and invite all the press, all the media to do the same, to come to our station to talk to the Vietnamese, about 500,000 Vietnamese in this area, and talk to them, and then tell them about what you want, and I will help you.
That's a great offer.
Yes, and thank you.
And I'm just curious, do you have Vietnamese firefighters? I'm sure you do. Okay. Next question, Ms. Mohammed. Maybe you speak loud. Great. Okay.
Yeah, this is for Liberated Sisters, KPFK, and Mars Media Studios. How does this lack affect morale and your retention rate?
You know, I'm somewhat removed from the fire stations. You know, I can tell you about the impact in relation to mental and behavioral stress, suicides, people off on industrial leave. I tell you what, we have Captain Garbani here, and he works at our busiest station in the department. I'm going to let him speak to the morale and the impact it has on the firefighters.
Good morning, how are you? I can't sit here and say we're immune because we're subject to the human condition. What I can tell you is our department has the pillars of strength, the bedrock that we're built on. That's what sustains us. And so our morale isn't directly affected by that in the sense where you're hearing a lot of things like we need help, it's getting worse. I think as you look around the room to all of my brothers and sisters wearing the badge, standing upright, feeling very proud about who they are. That's where our job in the family environment. So we preach family big in the fire department, not only because it's traditional and cultural, but I have to occupy the same dwelling with these people for 24 hours at a minimum. And so if you do not develop a family bond, regardless of where I'm from, my gender, etc., you can't survive. Well, we have an awesome department that not only survives, we thrives. We thrives, is that a correct? Can we edit that one out? We thrive is what I meant to say. So what I can tell you is when the morale becomes an issue, that's where we rely on each other. Captain Suarez and I go way, way back. And Captain Suarez works Inglewood, I work Lancaster, very far removed. But when Captain Suarez has something he'd like to discuss, he calls me, and vice versa. Well, also within my firehouse at 33s. Yesterday, I told you we had 2 pediatric runs, which are hard things to cope with. So how does my morale stay bolstered? My fire chief has not only put out a directive, he's put out a monthly message, and then directly face-to-face when I see him for various things, I have the authority as a fire captain to stop my station for the day. Guys, do you need to talk? Do we need to stop everything and sit down? So we have mechanisms in place. After having said all that, I would say the definition of who we are as proud protectors boosts our morale and keeps us immune, at the most part, to these things. Again, we're subject to human condition, but in the greater sense, who we are, what we do, what we believe in, the family environment, all those things are what we use to keep ourselves in high stands of morale. I hope I answered that for you.
He was somewhat humble. I went to Battalion 5, which is in Malibu. I spoke to a lot of first of all, thank you, Captain Carboni. But I spoke to some firefighters there. I spoke to you about the impact in relation to suicide, which was unheard of years ago. We've had 7 in the last 8 years. The mental and behavioral stress, which is probably was there, but it's increased now. But I went and spoke to firefighters last Friday in Malibu because that's an area that's hard hit because of the fact that we have vacancies in the department right now. So they're forced to work more than, they're scheduled to work 10 days, but then we force rehire them another 10 days a month. So there's individuals that didn't get to see their kids take their first steps at home. there's unfortunately, and I feel really bad in the sense I can't take full responsibility, but I saw one captain that worked up in Santa Clarita last year. I went to visit him because unfortunately his counterpart committed suicide last August. So when I spoke to him, his wife confronted me because she was upset because the only time I can see my husband is at work. So I came to cook for them because you're understaffed, and I'm here to cook dinner for them, and what are you going to do to make sure we get more firefighters? Unfortunately, a year later, they're divorced. So I can't speak to the statistics in relation to the impact it has on the family, but I can guarantee if we did an analysis, probably the divorce rate and other issues as it relates to law enforcement and fire service and paramedics and lifeguard is extremely high because of the amount of work that we ask them to do, the things that they see, and the stress they take home. So I just wanted to really emphasize that point also.
Let me just say, though, you know what? Last night, the chief and I were honoring lifeguards who have done incredible rescues because the county lifeguards are part of the LA County Fire Department. And I will tell you, these men and women, they're not like us. These men and women are the most incredible human beings, and yes, they've seen the worst, and yes, possibly their morale sinks sometimes, but these men and women will go into danger when the rest of us will go the other way. These men and women are incredibly brave and courageous, and you want to know about the home of the free and the home of the brave, it's a fire station. Is the home of the brave.
Thank you. We have time for about 10 more minutes of questions, and Khmer TV.
Good afternoon. My name is Janet K. Conklin, representing Khmer TV, and we're a large constituents as well in Long Beach. And Supervisor Han, thank you so much for being here and inviting us to be a part of this wonderful event. And also Chief Osby, it's an honor for us to be here among all of you who are, we consider heroes. So my question to you is this. I noticed that there are pictures of females here as firefighters. Myself being a minority of Asian descent, right? I'm not looking to be a firefighter because I'm probably too small. So basically, what is your policy and what are the rate of success for females to become firefighters? Can you address that? Because I know that you guys are having shortage of firefighters.
What about Assistant Chief Pappas answering that?
Yes, Chief Osby, working with the Board of Supervisors, has made it a priority to try to recruit and to hire women. Women do want to be firefighters, and they've been trying very hard to, in fact, we're having a test coming up, and we have a massive recruitment campaign. I think one of the major things is a lot of women don't know that they can become one. And a lot of times when people see me, they said, I didn't know I could do that job. And so what we're trying to do is get out to our communities, and we also have a great program, a youth program called the Explorer Program, where we take young men and women from the community, and from ages 15 to 21, and we involve them in a youth program where they come to our fire stations, they get training from our personnel, and we put them through a training academy, and we teach them how to become firefighters. We also teach them life skills, and we introduce them to a profession that maybe they would have never had the opportunity to be introduced to. So, and Captain Gorbani was talking about that too. He has a very active Explorer post and a youth post up in Antelope Valley. But yes, you can be a firefighter. We do have many programs in place to help recruit women, but a lot of it is letting women know that they can do the job, and we offer a women's fire camp. We also offer a women and girls camp where we take young girls in and we go through the process and we teach them about pulling the hose and throwing the ladders and all of that. And it's been a commitment on the part of the fire chief and the Board of Supervisors. So it's a slow process, but we will get there. And I think the more women that are on the job, the more women will be empowered and inspired to say that I could do that too. So.
Thank you. Mr. Eugene Levin of Panorama.
I was just going to say, you know, with 4 out of the 5 county supervisors being women. Need I say more, Chief?
Eugene Levin, Panorama Media Group. For the past 40 years, we are serving Russian-speaking community with no Russian collusion. And since there is ethnic media, my question is, to what extent Los Angeles County Fire Department assist or support firefighters in other countries? The question is, it's related to the fire that now in Siberia. The size of the fire is approximately 40,000 square kilometers, which is the size of combined Belgium and Austria. And they see it's moving to Mongolia, it's moving to Alaska now, and the fire and the smoke now visible even in Vancouver. So my question is, to what extent you guys support firefighters?
This is what I love about ethnic media. It's global and local.
Yeah, so just typically our primary response internationally is to our urban search and rescue team. There's 2 international teams in our country, one in Fairfax, Virginia, the other being here in Los Angeles County Fire Department. So we've traveled all over the world in relation to that mission, including Russia. Our latest response was Mexico, Puerto Rico, and then Texas when they had the hurricanes. We haven't gotten any requests internationally in relation to fire resources. We have in the past provided technical expertise to the Middle East and to Israel and Greece and Italy when they're having their fires. We haven't got any requests so far for that part of the country or the world. But it's evident, though, when you think about brush fires in Siberia, it's 100 degrees in Alaska, that those that don't believe that climate change is happening, it's real. That we do have some people right now that are assigned into Washington, D.C. and South America. I can't really speak to a lot of those assignments. When we have the Urban Search and Rescue Team, they get federalized. And then we have 2 people that are back in Washington, D.C. or South America working on international assignments, and they work through the Office of Foreign Disaster Affairs. And so they're helping right now South America because they made a request for resources. If there's a request from other countries, then we would send resources back to D.C. or through that assignment to help navigate that request, but one hasn't come yet.
Thank you. We have time for about 3 more questions. You were frantically raising your hand.
And I apologize since I came a little late if you've already addressed this. But beyond the pressure that you're all under with increased calls, I think this impacts LA County, the supervisor, paramedics. We have the chronic problem every day with homelessness. And I'm curious to know how that affects not only the 911 calls, but I happen to live in LA. I'm the editor of the San Fernando Valley Sun, and I see homeless populations with very sick people every day who need medical care, who are limping around. And I often wonder what happens in that disconnect between the street and being able to access very needed health care. And then we hear horrible stories about them. I see people leaving the hospital even with IVs and still wristbands and being on the street in medical gowns and in neighborhoods where you never saw homeless populations before. So it affects the county and their ability to serve and the emergency rooms, et cetera. But this seems to be a population that now numbers what, Supervisor Hahn? 60,000 people every day. So how do you handle that?
Because Assistant Chief Pappas talked about this in a pre-interview. In a pre-interview. I'm going to ask her if she wants to answer.
Yes, and then I'll defer to the medical physicians as well. Yes, it impacts service because we don't ever turn away a 911 call. So a lot of times it's not the homeless, the person's experienced homelessness that call us, it's a passerby that's concerned. So there are some definite health issues, and again, I talked about being that safety net where these folks would never get care, but 911 is called, we take them to a medical facility, and then they discover some underlying health issues. But Martin Luther King Hospital is opening up a behavioral health center and a substance rehabilitation center that I think will help alleviate some of that problem within the community. And but it does take away from services. I don't want to say take away in a bad way. It adds to the call volume because there's a population that is not being cared for various reasons. But I will defer to the physicians because they probably have a better perspective on it.
Sure. County Fire Department has been working with the Measure H program to try to help deliver care out to the homeless communities. By far, I think the biggest medical issue that is existing with people experiencing homelessness is mental health and substance use. They also have a lot of other medical problems, diabetes, hypertension, and all other things as well. They're an especially vulnerable patient population. And so we have a couple of pilot programs that we've been launching, and we've been really grateful to the Board of Supervisors in their investment in adding additional psychiatric urgent care centers and places that we can, where we can send people to actually get treatment. There's been a horrible shortage of mental health services across Los Angeles County that I think has played a huge role in people experiencing homelessness. In the Antelope Valley, we have piloted, we really beta tested a project that we're looking to launch as a pilot, a one-year pilot project starting in October that will pair up a nurse practitioner with a firefighter paramedic to be able to go out and deliver care out in the field rather than our current posture, which is as it has been for the past 50 years, where all the patients that we see are transported to the emergency department. The emergency department becomes a horrible bottleneck and has actually become almost a de facto homeless shelter for patients that have no place else to go. So looking to be able to take those patients and refer them to other centers, so mental health urgent care centers, sobering centers and things, to help get people connected with services, to help get them out of the cycle of homelessness.
Thank you. We have time for one more question. I'm so sorry. I think Oi was wanting to ask.
It's really fast, 3 questions. First of all, what is the budget right now? What would be the ideal, number for the funding that you would need to provide for all the services? And the third one is the ideal number of staff that you like to have added.
So added to that, also from the Korea Times, was a question about what are the funding sources?
Okay, so the budget for the first of all, let me go backward. The fire department, we're called the Consolidated Fire Protection District. So the Board of Supervisors is our governing body, but we don't get general revenue funds from the county for our budget. Our budget is primarily property tax, which is up to the high 60 percentile. Then the rest of our budget is our fees to some of our cities and the services that we provide. So those are our funding streams. So we have approximately a $1.2 billion budget that provides services throughout the county, all the unincorporated areas, the County of Los Angeles, 60 cities, through 170 fire stations, then beaches and the lifeguards and all the other specialties that we do. As it relates to our infrastructure needs, as it relates to apparatus, fire trucks or paramedic units, communication systems, technical things that our firefighters and paramedics need, structures, we estimate that to be approximately $1.5 billion is a need as it relates to all the things, $1.5 billion. As it relates to facilities to accommodate women, as an example, when you think about most of the stations were built, it was just for men. So we don't, most of our stations, there's a national law that requires privacy and access. Most of our stations don't meet that in a sense to the letter of the law. We have a policies and procedures that we are able to live together, but we still need to upgrade our facilities as an example. As for staff, that's yet to be determined in the sense that we need to continue to ask citizens in relation to what their thoughts are about the needs of the department. We ask you to go to our website to fill out the survey where there's specific questions, and that survey once again is www.wearelacountyfire.org. We ask you to go to that website to talk about the things that are most important to you. From that information that we get, then I'll be able to quantify and qualify the need as it relates to the number of personnel, and then attach a fiscal number to that. But right now, I can't do this from my position as we sit here right now.
Thank you. I'm going to ask each of you to give one 30-second last soundbite for us. What do you want us to take away today? And I'll start with Dr. Kazan. What's the headline you'd like to see?
We've become so much more technically advanced. Please help continue to support us so we can provide you the world-class emergency medical care that you all deserve.
Great. A little long for a headline, but absolutely to the point. Okay.
Let's make sure that paramedics can do what we want them to do, right? They're already taking care of our community. Let's just make sure they can continue.
Don't be afraid to call 911. We're here to help you every single day, whether it's day, 3 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon. If you call us and you need help, we will send you help.
And you made a very important point when we were talking about how people tend to think they have to call 911 in English. So they'll often call somebody, I think you told me, Mr. Hernandez, they'll call a relative to make the call, and then they lose the time. So you can call in language, is that correct? Absolutely. Okay. And you can text, okay.
Aging equipment and decreased staffing is becoming the new norm for our department. And
excellent, excellent headline.
The sky's not falling, but we're definitely in a storm. We have some very extremely dedicated men and women in this organization that do an outstanding job. Please try to understand their challenges and help us, help me, help the supervisors provide all the staffing, the tools, and the equipment that they need to continue to do an exceptional job.
This isn't a headline, but sitting here listening to everyone, I'm thinking, my dad's vision 50 years ago to create this controversial model of having firefighters really save lives based on medical calls was incredible. And so 50 years later, here's his daughter sitting here as the next supervisor, Han. People always want to know, how do I carry on his legacy? I can't think of anything more important for me at this moment in time to make sure that the LA County Fire Department has the resources it needs to go another 50 years and provide the kind of service that really matters to the quality of life of the over 10 million residents of Los Angeles County. That is not a headline. That is from the heart.
Okay.
Por favor, ayúdenos a seguir pidiendo ayuda para los recursos que se ocupan para poder seguir ayudando a la comunidad de la manera que merecen ellos. Gracias.
So right back there is the thin red line. And we all, as citizens of the county, enjoy unprecedented safety and security because we have highly trained professional people. So this is not for us, it's for everyone here. It's quality of life. And the men and women back there ensure that in this county we have a high quality of life.
for the sense of headline, get to know your fire department. Take the survey while we're helping you every day.
Hey, far out. We'll keep you. That's great. Look, thank you. I hope you understand we have an extraordinary turnout of media today, representing so many of the diverse populations you serve. And this is such an opportunity for us to get to know you, and it's for ongoing improving visibility of your work and your needs. So thank you to all of our media for being here today. We honor you as well.
Good afternoon, Fire Chief Osby. I'm Janet from Khmer TV. It's an honor and a privilege for me to talk to somebody like yourself, who's been in the fire department for a long time. And so we have some questions for you. What you said earlier really resonated with us, especially me, in terms of mental health issues and resources. Can you share with us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, what I talked about earlier as it relates to being a firefighter, paramedic, that generally speaking, it's the most stressful profession in our country. It's always in the top 3, but it's always, generally speaking, number 1. So it has a lot of impact on you mentally, physically, and spiritually. And a couple of things. One is that, generally speaking, in the past, the number 1 statistic of firefighter fatalities would be on-duty fatalities, but the last several years has been suicide, which has really bypassed line-of-duty deaths. Even unfortunate, the last 8 years I've been the fire chief, we've had 7 suicides. So it really speaks to the stress that our people are under, and we try to do a lot to really address that. So our fire department, the Los Angeles County Fire Department, we were really the first department in the country to start a peer support program. And that's really firefighters, firefighter paramedics, and lifeguards that are trained, that can talk to their peers about the stress and how to navigate some of the things they see and some of the pressure that they're under. But when it gets to the point that they can't navigate that, then we have mental behavioral specialists and mental health doctors that our firefighters can call on their own, or we can bring them into the fire stations or lifeguard facilities to help them with the stress of their profession.
Thank you, sir, for sharing that. Now, I come from a technology background, so this is important to our station owner as well. Mr. Tony Lai is very concerned about technology. So in terms of the outfits and stuff like that, can you explain to us, is there any vision that you have?
Yes, part of today's conversation was really just to talk about the infrastructure need of the department, and as it relates to technology. As an example, the radios that our firefighters and paramedics utilize are outdated. To replace all the radios throughout our department is approximately $70 million, but we don't have the $70 million to replace them. So they're talking an antiquated technology as it relates to communication, and generally speaking, effective communication is very important. The defibrillators that our firefighters use, our paramedics use, the devices as it relates to data, those are outdated, so it'd be nice to be able to replace those. Even our communication system at our command and control facility, the technology in there is over 30 years old, so we don't have the capacity to do tracking of resources, or if somebody calls from their cell phone, how to track them and triangulate down immediately to save their life. So, and those types of situations, in our profession, seconds and minutes count. So the more that we can invest in our technology, the better services we can provide to protect the lives and property of this community.
So, Chief, what is your goal, and how did that, outdated technology impact us, if you were to put it in perspective? And then what is your overall goal in terms of looking for things to happen?
Well, I wanted to say that we have some very dedicated, well-trained, and professional firefighters and paramedics. And so they do the best that they can with what they have, and they do a very exceptional job. But we did an analysis of the department as it relates to their apparatus. For example, we would like to replace apparatus every 20 years. We have over a fourth of our fleet that's more than 20 years old. Our radios are out of date. All of our technical information is out of date. Some of the technical tools that are out there that they can provide services we can't afford. Our facilities don't always accommodate men and women because they were built decades ago. So when we did a complete assessment of the department as it relates to equipment, specialized equipment, IT, communication systems, vehicles, and structures, it's about a $1.1 billion price tag to address all the things as we understand it now. So we're trying to educate the community of that. We have a website they can go to on the Los Angeles County Fire Department website, and then we're going to take all that data and get that information to the Board of Supervisors for them to make the determination how to help fund the department moving forward.
And last, we were talking about locations and trying, what you were just saying earlier is how do you triangulate and locate the people who are calling, especially in the high desert and stuff like that? Is that a problem?
It is a problem right now. If we have the proper technology and somebody called for their cell phone, we can automatically connect to their cell phone and connect them to our dispatch center, then provide that information to our firefighter paramedics. But since we don't have that, there's a lot of communication with the person in the field and trying to triangulate manually where we think they are. And then in addition to sending our firefighters and firefighter paramedics out there, we also send our helicopters out to try to help search and find people. But if we have the most up-to-date data and technology, we can do that quicker. And like I said, when we respond to emergency incidents, in some instances, seconds and minutes can make the difference between living and dying. And so that technology will really help us do our jobs better.
Well, you know, I'm excited that the supervisor, Janice Hahn, is here to endorse and support her father's vision. So how do you feel about that? Do you feel that this is really hopeful?
Yeah, I feel honored that the supervisor is here. She's made public safety and supporting the Los Angeles County Fire Department her #1 priority. Her dad was very instrumental in bringing the paramedic program to this region 50 years ago, which, might I add, is the first fire-based paramedic program in the world.
Wow.
Not just the country, the world. So when you think about that, 50 years ago it didn't exist. But because it's so popular now, our population's grown, we have an aging population, we have a homeless issue, that as an example, the last few years, our call volume's gone up by 50%, but our staffing's only gone up 3%. It really shows a huge gap in relation to our ability to keep up with the call volume and the need. So the fact that the supervisor's here, the fact that you're here helping us articulate our need, I think we can get support from the community to help them understand it, to support us better, to help us provide better service.
That is well said, Chief, and I'm so honored that you took the time to talk with us because it's crazy, there's a lot of things going on, and we represent a large Khmer population in Cambodia, the Cambodia town, but you know what, we would like to invite you for a further interview and maybe your staff, so look for an invitation. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank
Have
you.
a really wonderful day today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
So I just wanted to let you know that we wanted to share with you the vision of the supervisor, Janice Hahn, for the County of LA, as well as Chief Osby for the Fire Department. So I just wanted to say thank you for your time, Junip Leah, and have a good day. Bye.